So, welcome to our economical friendly talk. We just recycled basically the talk from 2016. Yeah, we are guilty. It's the same place here in Ljubljana. We are the same guys, so why not make the same talk like 8 years ago? And yeah, we were very good introduced. So my name is Werner. I'm originally from my Lower Bavarian home country, Lower Bavaria, and now I'm living in the Alps in Austria. I have 2 kids at least, 5 guitars, and yeah, I also developed to a pilgrim somehow in the past years.
Sorry guys, if you want to see the mic.
Awesome.
Is it? All right.
Okay, so we did like it. Oh, okay. My name is Lukas. I'm from Switzerland. You may know me as Lerni. Running a little company and also have 2 kids. Beekeeping is one of my hobbies since 20 years or so. Nothing much changed. Probably that's a good sign. We'll see.
Yeah.
Oh, that's me. What has changed is the question. Well, our development environments are containered, which makes things slower, but also xdebug and PHP are now in newer, faster versions available. And with DDEV, things are much more predictable and streamlined. I mean, development environment is much more streamlined, and setting up xdebug has become a breeze. It's really much more easy. When I think back, 2016, we talked quite a bit about configuring thing. That's not the case anymore.
Yeah, so when we talk of debugging, I think we need to talk about bugs. If it's not a bug, I hope it's a feature, but most of the time it is not. And yeah, where do bugs actually come from? Any one of you knows? Not? Okay, so bugs are around in this world longer than human mankind for about 400 million years, and they have been here all the time, and they're annoying us. And as a pilgrim, my biggest horror is a bad bug. Yeah. So when was the first bug in technology talked about? It was about 150 years ago. Even Thomas Edison, who had no computers, talked about bugs when something got too difficult or it didn't work really. And when was the first computer bug found? Around which time, which era? In the 50s? End of the 40s, yeah. So back that time we didn't have microchips on silicon basis. They were working with relays and valves and so, like a good guitar amplifier today still does. Yeah, and so there was a little moth in a relay, and so the relay didn't work properly. Yeah, they found the bug and they archived it. So this is actually the first known computer bug. Yeah. So how can we find stuff in PHP? How can we see what's going on under the hood? I think everybody has been there, done that. So very simple tasks of debugging is here, echo, print R, or die, I am here, so actually run to this method somewhere. And Silverstripe also has a few methods like debug show or debug message, which works in development or in test mode, but not in live mode. If you want to get these debugging messages in live mode, you can use debug dump. And if you need your variables and the templates raw something, then you can make foo.debug for each viewable data object. This methodology, this way of debugging, it's very easy and can be used by every beginner, but the biggest downside is if you write this code it will end up in your version control system, and I think you should not commit it to Git. And it's absolutely not the best tool for it. So, yeah, get your tools known. Something more on the Silverstripe side, and debug parameters when you visit your site in the browser. So you can put your site in development mode just for your session, or in test mode, or you can show some kind of debugging information or about the request. And you can also show the queries or which templates are used and compiled. But Lukas will show you a better way to get all this information at once.
Oh yeah, this is
in a minute.
This is probably a little hint anyway. If you do not want to have that stuff available, like debug parameter stuff and flush and dev build over HTTP, you can deny it. Probably you should do that since we all have automated deployments. So I mean, I wonder why it is there. I never use it. I have that available as task in my project, but never used it quite some time now. So this is really a question: should you turn it off? So anyway.
Yeah. So now, let's have a drink and go to the debug bar.
I've two-hand.
Two-handed, yeah.
I've introduced this module 8 years ago. It's still alive and it's getting better. You get quite a few information about, and I have 2 screenshots here where you can see how much time is spent and where. This is a module by Thomas Lecroix. Anyway, this, yes, it worked. So the second menu, this one.
This one, yeah.
Here you can see actually how many database queries you get. The first one was time spent where. Probably both are quite related, and if you want to cache and optimize things, those are probably the most important parts of PHP DebugBar. And on the button you see the duplicated queries, and also quite helpful if you run it on in containers or DDEV typically. You have to set check local IP to false, and this shouldn't be a problem since you usually require it as a development module. So this is that, and then you get some more. So first, this timeline I've showed you already, database queries, and then the system locker. I will go on, come to that later on. Session, cookies, parameters, requirements like CSS, JavaScript, middleware. You see which middleware is involved. You see which templates, site config, config system, cache, partial caching, mile. Mile probably isn't as important anymore since, yeah, as we had in the talk before with DDEV, it's really nice when you have the mile catcher or whatever it is. Headers, CMS, PHP version, locale, time, memory usage. I mean, you just install it as development requirement, and it will just work straight out of the box. You have on the lower right corner, where is that? There probably. Just this icon, what you see on the left side, and then you can pop it up and see all this information.
Yeah, we already had a talk about DDEV as local development system. So a short recap, so it's for local development based on Docker and has everything for you ready to go. And if you need something else like Solar or whatever, you can install it with one command. And one good thing is also when you put your DDEV configuration file, just that one file, to your VCS, to Git, then you have it documented which kind of node version do you use, which kind of PHP version do you need. And years later, when you come back to the project, you know, oh, it was Word, no, not Word, it was Node version 12 or whatever, because I never remember 5 years later which Node version did I use back then to get my stuff running. So yeah, it has a special project type for Silverstripe, so it's really like you've seen before, up and running, and there are good plugins for our favorite IDEs in DDEV. So let's come to the step debugger, to xdebug. Why should I use xdebug? I can let my code die. But why should I use it? For me, it's that tool for finding bugs. It's much more easy. I can see what happens under the hood. It's a good tool for craftsmanship. Like when you're in woodworking, you need sharp tools and good tools for build good stuff. You cannot commit accidentally stuff like debug show or die I am here. Nowadays it works easy, like with Pascal 30 years ago. Just set up your IDE and it works. Out of the box, you can switch it on and off easily with DDEV, because xdebug, when it runs, it makes your website much slower. So that's a bit annoying. But when you're not debugging, when you're working with the templates, you don't need xdebug, switch it off, then your website is fast again. And I think you will become a more sexy developer when you use it. Yeah? Also. Okay.
So what? Oh, okay. So I have to take that. Yeah. What happened until now? xdebug PHP extension written by Derek Redhands. He worked on it since 2002, 22 years. It's more or less a one-man project. It's pretty impressive what it can do today. We just cover debugging, not profiling that much. And debugging is done per DBGP debugging protocol, which we'll cover later on again. I mean, is it still worth a talk, since usually you just set the breakpoint, just click that red button and then switch on xdebug, and it should work right out of the box. Probably it does, or you need some tweaking. I have all these things in my boilerplate to make it available like that I really can just start and have it all up and running. And this you will see in the next slide, I think. The only thing that I really that I do, and I have that in my .vs folder with extension tasks and settings and so on, all predefined for each project. So this is the folder that it's boilerplate code or boilerplate settings that you could also copy over and over to the next project. But well, I have it in my boilerplate. Important is the DDEV manager. This does help you switch on and off xdebug. You just click with Visual Studio Code, obviously. You just start debugging, and it runs DDEV xdebug false or true. And PHP debug adapter you need, and also I set hostname to 000. And this helps to make CLI debugging work out of the box. Also, path mappings. And this is a little demo where I just clone a repo and have xdebug with DDEV run out of the box. in under 2 minutes. I mean, you get a lot more stuff in that with that base template, but this is what it actually does. So I clone this into the project, and as soon as it is in, I do the configure, DDEV configure, as we saw in the last talk. There's a little hint. If you omit the name in DDEV config, it falls back to the folder name, which I found quite helpful. So you do not have to specify, you just copy that over, and in combination with the workspace folder settings from Visual Studio Code, you just have it run out of the box without any further configuration. So now configuration is done, so I start DDEV. As I said, I have in the VS Studio in the dot folder some tasks predefined, and I mean, you could do that easily on the shell or command line, but I tend to have those in tasks because it's just consistent from project to project. If I have a different build environment, I just can say watch, build, whatever, and I have a lot of other stuff in that for that purpose. So now I just start DDEV probably. Yes, I do. And this takes some time. It goes quite fast since I switched to OrbStack. This is still an old Intel Macintosh where this runs on. And then I do the Composer install. And things should be up and running in less than a minute. So you can get it. So now we do the dev build, and we now do populate some stuff since I do not have the default sites. And here we go. So now we have something up and running. And if we now set a breakpoint, and turn on the debugger, then you see this task kicks in automatically. I just start to debug, and the task kicks in here. And now we go to the browser and do a request. And here we go. We should just hold and can step through. I mean, this is so much easier than it used to be, and no real magic, but just to show how easy it could be to set it up and have it running without any further ado. I've talked about this protocol, this DBGP protocol, which is between your IDE and xdebug, the server. So you make a request from the browser, and then xdebug is sending some XML to your IDE over that protocol. This probably looks something like that. You can, if you have to debug your debugger, you can start netcat and listen to port 9003. And then you will see, as soon as you make a request to the web server, xdebug sends that to your browser. I mean, then obviously netcat won't do any further interaction with over this protocol to xdebug, but you can see if it comes through. And if this doesn't resolve the problem what you have with connectivity, firewalls, or container or whatnot, you can also inspect it closer with TCP dump, but TCP dump is really noisy, so I've made kind of a filter to filter out just XML more or less it works. And then you also see what your IDE answers and goes forth and back. And you see a little bit more details, or probably something is missing, and then you see where it actually gets lost. So, debugger functions.
Yeah, so why is xdebug actually better than letting your code die? Well, Lukas just showed you, you can set breakpoints. You can set, let's stop the code here. Or you can set a conditional breakpoint. That's very handy when you loop and you want to look how does this special object behave in this loop. For instance, if the page type is a product, or if you want page with the ID 42, so you can make a condition that it breaks there and not there, not the others. You can see all the available variables and their values. You can watch variables, how they change, and you see the stack of the called functions you have in your code. When debugging, you can step over to the next line. You can go into a method. You can go out of a method. You can place your cursor somewhere and say, run until the cursor, run to the cursor. You can just hit play and go to the next breakpoint. I really like evaluate expression, so that on the breakpoint, if I type something, what comes back? So when I make this relation name, whatever, what comes back in this case? And of course, you can get a list of all the available breakpoints there. In PHP Storm, it looks basically like this. So here's the stack with the different frames, and you see a lot of middlewares. Here are the available variables, and here's my variable to watch, and it has some value. Over here would be the watches when you want to see how the variable changes. And over here there are the different buttons to run to the next breakpoint or whatever.
This is a short demo again, when it runs. So here we just set a breakpoint, and probably to show the logic a bit, what we do, we have a counter and we set with the injector few logging messages with the level of info, warning and error. And so as I said, we set the breakpoint and then we turn on, oopala, what is now going on? We started the debugger. Oh, it starts again. Oh, man. So we have to, So I just let it run, probably. We set the breakpoint, start the debugger. As you see, the task kicks in. Now we get the controls to step in, step out. And now we do a request, and it starts straight, it stops straight, and then we step through. And as you see on the left-hand side, we can set some watcher for, say, this ID or whatever. Yeah, that's bad. Yeah, just wanted to show you this. You also can add, just shouldn't stop it. Doesn't work for some reason. Yeah, you can set watchers and so on, but you have to be careful with that, because if you have watchers and then step into another function, they are not available. So it will throw warnings on the front end. So now we step out of the function again and land back to the counter and set this different log messages. And we also can set something in the console, and we can watch them on the left-hand side, of course. yeah. So we step over, and then we also have this lock method that I have in my Visual Studio Code setup. It just scrolls automatically. I find that quite helpful within the debugger environment. And as I said, you get warnings if you forget to remove the watchers. So I just reload and run through, and here we go. And now you see, again, I try to stop. You see what we locked now appears in the debug bar on different levels, and you even can filter those levels in the lower right corner. That's basically an interaction with xdebug and DebugBar.
Yeah, so that's basically about debugging, and what can you do more than debugging stuff you call with your browser, not Bowser, that's something different. Actually, when you can call it, you can debug it. It doesn't matter how, if you make a CLI call or via shell or whatever, then you can debug it. For instance, if you have a unit test, you can debug it. And sometimes when I have to code something more complicated, in a shop system, in the checkout, I want something, then it's always totally annoying. So for each go through, go to the shop, put something in the cart, go to the checkout, see if it really is. If I put a second product in it, does it behave like I want to, and so on. Then for me, a unit test is better, because I set up my scene, and then I can go to it and debug it and and look how it works or what doesn't work. So when you set it up, it's very good, and yeah, when the test works, actually you know you're done. And yeah. So other tools for having less bugs, for instance, PHP Stan, the static analyzer. Anyone here is using PHP Stan? Yeah, at least one, two, three, a few. Okay, yeah. What I really like about PHP Stan is totally annoying. So it takes some work off me, and it checks your code for possible bugs before your code reaches production. This can be something pretty simple, like here, call to an undefined method, or an if condition is always true, something like that, some simple stuff you might not notice in there. And it works better when you have a good type system, when you have good typed classes or these type hints, and it forces you to think about types. On the downside, it's pretty annoying, actually, but it's a very useful tool, I think. You can install it as a development dependency via Composer, and there is a special module to teach PHP Stan all this magic of Silverstripe. Yeah, and another cool tool is the Silverstripe shell, made by Philip here. So the Silverstripe shell, not SSShell as I always read. It's a REPL for Silverstripe running PsyShell, so it's kind of the Gangnam style of REPLs. And REPL, the old guys of you who worked with Lisp decades ago, they know it means read evil print loop. And it's a cool tool to view classes or objects or static properties and run methods in your code. So you have a shell, you can get a data object, run a method on this specific data object. It's really cool, and of course you can run sake commands and flush and stuff like this. Why should you use it? It's good for tinkering around in Silverstripe. You know, other frameworks have also similar tools, and the interactive debugger, it saves lives. You don't have to die all the time. And For very simple tasks, it's an alternative of writing a build task. So, of course, we have a video about this.
Yeah. You are switching, come on.
Ich switch da nichts rum.
Nee.
Eine haltlose Unterstellung.
So, as I said, I have this task available all the time, and I just discovered this. Werner showed it to me, this Silverstripe shell. Quite liked it, quite immediately integrated it. And now we are at the conclusion. I shouldn't stop. Shouldn't stop. Just play. So it runs. If it runs, we query something, a page or site tree object as equals to page, and then comma. Yeah, finally. And you see the column on the lower left-hand side. Now I press Q to quit it, probably. And then, so also can just have a single value. Well, I can. Come on. There's no need to stop. And you also can run methods like absolute link, and also other things like flush, as you see now. But probably you can do this with other statics you also can show. Yeah. So that's it. It still runs.
Still runs, yeah. Okay. Good. And done. So. Es geht aber nicht weiter. What have you done? Was? Okay, conclusion to sum up what we learned today. Bugs are natural to code. They love it. They love your code, of course. But there are tools to get rid of all these bugs. And what should you do? You should use them. So thanks for your attention, and see you again in 8 years.
Thank you, guys. Thanks. Any questions? Any questions? All right. I'm coming.
Of course.
Thank you for reminding us to use debugger and not echo and so on. It's not a question, it's just a warning or reminder. If you have xdebug enabled, opcache and JIT will not work or will not behave like when xdebug is disabled. So do not try to debug problems in JIT with xdebug. Just a reminder for everyone who spends hours doing that, like me.
Thanks, thank you. Any other questions or suggestions? All right, then another big round of applause for Werner and Lukas. Thank you, Lukas.